Hey everyone. Whatever. Hey guys, this is Misery Loves Company. We do this every fucking week. It's a I don't know, production of miserytourism.com. We invite outsider and transgressive art authors to come and read their work. And yeah, that's that. I don't think I need to belabor this. So first up tonight is Griffin. You still with us, Griffin?
Yeah, I didn't know I'd be first. Okay. Um,
Sorry,
let's go.
we didn't have that
So,
many people sign up. So you're going to be reading
no.
that your dad
Yeah, so I'll be reading, well, thanks for spoiling it. I was gonna do I had a whole thing. I'm gonna be reading
wrote. Oh fuck,
part
sorry.
of a play by fellow Misery Tourism contributor W. David Hancock, who also happens to be my dad. Um, yeah, this is the Convention of Cartography. I'm reading from this now out of print. Well, okay, my background's right. From Play, a Journal of Plays, Volume 1, which is an currently out of print theater journal. Um, I'm just going to be reading the opening monologue section because the play is kind of long, and it's also going to be republished sometime this fall. Okay, so this is the Convention of Cartography. Audience members stumble upon a very old Airstream trailer sitting in the middle of an overgrown parking lot. A hand-painted sign above the door of the trailer reads, Museum. Another sign reads, Next tour, 8 o'clock p.m. There's a canopy attached to the trailer. Beneath the canopy are a dozen or so chairs. These chairs face a video monitor. Next to the video monitor is a floor lamp. Beneath the video monitor is a display case containing a white and blue baseball cap, a motor, a photograph of a horseshoe crab, and a few road maps. A sign on the case reads, Some of Mike's Things. The curator's wife stands behind a small table selling concessions. She looks Midwestern, wears a faded cotton jumper with stains. She is slightly embarrassed that she has to charge for drinks and apologizes each time she makes a sale. She interacts with the audience. Some audience members feel at home with her, others feel superior to her. To those who seem interested, she describes how she quit her degree at fabric arts at the University of Iowa because she can't figure out if quilting is an art or a craft. Around 8 o'clock, curator's wife says, I think my husband should be ready by now. She seats the audience members and disappears into the trailer. When she returns, she sits near the video monitor in full view. She looks bored. A few minutes after 8 o'clock p.m., the curator enters the tent from the trailer. He is carrying a large wicker picnic basket. He places the basket on the floor, turns on the lamp, takes some index cards out of his pocket, and welcomes the audience. Perhaps talking about the local weather, a story about why he was late for the lecture, the quality of the coffee down the street, etc. He then begins his lecture. During this lecture, the curator makes constant references to his notes, which are printed on the index cards. Curator. Good evening. Welcome to the Convention of Cartography. My name is insert performer's name. Since this is the first time that I've brought the museum to insert town, I thought I'd better tell you a little bit about myself. I live in Iowa City, Iowa. I work as a teller at Hills Bank and Trust Company in Lone Tree, Iowa, but I'm also an artist. I make three-dimensional landscapes out of foam insulation and barbed wire. Of course, most of those just sit in my basement, but there you have it. Anyway, I didn't ask you here to tell you about my artwork. I asked you all here to tell you about somebody I knew when I was a kid. When I was 14, I was having some problems at home, and so I decided to run away. I don't want to go into too many details about why I did that. It wasn't a pleasant period of my life, and I have a lot of bad memories. But about 2 months into my travels, something happened that changed my life. I was in Boise, Idaho, visiting my great aunt for Thanksgiving. My great aunt works as a secretary for the Salvation Army, and she'd taken a man in for the holidays. His name was Mike. Curator points to the display case that is beneath the video monitor. These are some of Mike's things. Mike's the reason that I decided to become an artist. Mike had worked on the pipeline in Alaska, carved tombstones for a while, even owned his own antique business. But there was a fire in the business, and he lost everything and became a drifter. His apartment was above the business, and he left a coffee pot on the stove, or so he said, and with just the clothes he was wearing, he hit the road. When I ran into him in Boise, he'd been traveling for about 15 years. Mike and I stayed in Boise for about 2 months. We worked in a laundromat together, and we really hit it off. So we decided to travel together. This was very important to me. I was very young at the time, and had been in a number of difficult situations on the road, and I thought Mike would look out for me, keep me out of trouble. Mike was an artist and a poet. He was the very first artist I'd ever met. We'd be in a diner somewhere, and he'd turn over the placemat, and he'd start to write a poem on it. Then he'd convince me to find out what the waitress's name was, and he'd dedicate the poem to her. Put a little heart in one of the corners, maybe some scroll work down at the bottom. Then, when it came time to pay for the check, he'd try to con the waitress into taking the poem instead of money. I have one of Mike's poems here, and I'd like to read it to you. The curator reaches into his wicker basket and takes out an old poem in a picture frame. It is handwritten on an old paper placemat. The curator starts the poem to read the poem, then pauses. By the way, Mike wrote this poem in Seattle. Curator reads the following poem. Magic Silver Coffee. I know an abandoned Stuckey's where a ghost waitress fills truckers' thermoses with magic silver coffee and makes them dream of the loved ones they left back home. This section of the poem is underlined. With this coffee in me, I can perceive a different reality from you. If I look at ordinary objects, they will slowly tell me a story. I have the ability to go back in time just by staring at the objects I find on the road. All these discarded relics have souls. In a spark plug, I see evenings in motel rooms. In a wool hat, I see meals in a diner in central Pennsylvania. In a torn Esso road map, I see an empty Studebaker along a back road. Again, underlined. Slowly, these events become connected and a tragic story unfolds. Mike used to underline sections of his poetry when he wanted special emphasis. The matchbook with a picture of an iris on it becomes connected to the torn page from a phone book that has Robert G. Jefferson circled on it, and then these two of them might bring me back to that woman in Arkansas that I once spent a few weeks with. Then the coffee wears off, and I don't even remember her name. Mike. As he is reading, curator comments on the poem, making observations like, this section of the poem is underlined, or Mike used to underline sections of his poetry when he wanted special emphasis. When he is done reading, curator hands the poem to an audience member. I'll pass this around. Curator returns to his lecture notes. Mike also made boxes. We'd be traveling around and he'd see an object that he really liked, maybe at a flea market or a yard sale, and he'd put the object in his backpack. After a while, his backpack became very full, and we'd check into a motel room. He'd go find a cigar box or steal some small display case from a store, and he'd start to make a sculpture out of the cigar box and the objects. Then he might take the sculpture and leave it in a public restroom. He'd attach to the note to the box saying, "Dear stranger, it's all right for you to take this. It's a present for you." Of course, other times he'd trade the boxes for drugs or alcohol. With the large boxes, though, he sometimes made large boxes and cemented them into place, maybe in a back alley. You couldn't take those. You could only look at it. I have one of Mike's boxes here, and I'm going to show that to you. The curator reaches into his wicker basket and pulls out one of Mike's cigar boxes. He opens it and shows it to the audience. It has animal cards pasted on the inside of the lid. The box is filled with buttons and a small glass diorama containing birds. The curator passes the box to an audience member. You can pass this around. Please be careful with the lid. I remember when Mike made this box. It was the very first box I ever saw him make. It was June 11th, 1977. We were checked into a motel room in Mobile, Alabama. It was really late at night. Mike was off drinking somewhere. I was watching TV and drifting off to sleep, and Mike came in out of the rain with that cigar box, big jar of buttons and those animal cards, some cardboard. And he started to make this box. It was incredible. I had never seen anyone do anything like it. I stayed up all night watching him. It made me feel at home. It reminded me of when I used to go to the American Museum of Natural History with my grandmother, and I'd just stare at the dioramas for hours. In the morning, I couldn't find the box anywhere. About 2 hours down the road, I asked Mike, "Hey, where's that box you made?" And he said, "It's gone." Actually, my wife and I found that box 2 years ago in DeKalb, Illinois. We were passing through DeKalb. There's a big Amoco station there, and we were stopped for gas. I went in to pay for the gas, and there was one of Mike's boxes sitting right by the cash register. I couldn't believe it. It's like seeing a ghost. I gave the guy $10 for it. He said it had been there when he bought the place. I feel real fortunate to have it. While the audience examines Mike's box, the curator continues with his lecture. In 1978, Mike and I started to travel with the flea markets. Basically, what we would do is gather together a bunch of useless junk and try to sell it. He'd see some sprocket or other on the side of the road and pick it up and say, "Someday somebody's going to need this." And I'd say, "Sure, Mike, whatever." And he'd take it to the flea market and he'd attach some outrageous price to it, $14.96, something like that. And sure enough, somebody would come up and say, "You know, I need that sprocket for my 1962 Amana washing machine." And he'd sell it. Kind of ticked me off, actually. I have some pictures of the flea market, and I'd like to show you those. The curator reaches into his wicker basket and digs out some pages from a photo album. Actually, this is a picture of Mike and me. I'll show you that. Curator hands photos to an audience member. There's a Polaroid snapshot of a woman selling junk at a flea market. This one here, her name is Dolores. Dolores hated Mike. She had a legitimate stall at the flea market, sold ceramic plates and Avon perfume dispensers. Mike made a killing every time, and Dolores went home flat broke. Curator points to a second Polaroid, a photograph of a small trailer. This is Dolores' trailer. I used to make a few extra dollars by helping Dolores load her trailer. I remember one morning, real early, Mike went out with a spray paint can, and he spray painted a slightly erotic love poem to Dolores on the trailer. Dolores' boyfriend got really upset, though, and washed it off. I'm afraid I didn't take that picture in time. Curator points to 3 other pictures, photos of old men in front of us. These guys here, these guys are the boys. Here, why don't I pass this around and tell you a story about them? Curator passes the photo album page to the audience. Every once in a while, as we were traveling around, Mike would get this strange look in his eyes, and he'd say, "Kid, it's time to go see the boys." And I'd say, "Great, there's a week lost." So we'd get on a bus and head down to Tallahassee, Florida, and he'd check me into a motel room, and he'd leave me for about a week. And I don't know, I was pretty young at the time, and I didn't know where he was going, but he always came back. And then one time I said to myself, "Look, I've had enough of this." So I followed him. And I followed him for about 3 miles to the outskirts of Tallahassee, and we came to that house there, and he went in, and I waited in the bushes. And I went up to the window, and I looked, and there were these guys, like these 10 guys just sitting around the kitchen table, sorting buttons. Curator points to a postcard on the album page. The postcard is a picture of a boy standing on a hill overlooking Montreal. "Oh, this is actually me. It's up in Montreal. We were passing through Montreal, and there was this guy up here who made postcards for a living. He needed a model for this photograph, and so I posed for him. He gave me a dozen postcards for payment. Actually, I sent that postcard to my father when I was on the road, but he didn't even recognize me." Mike and I parted company after this period of our lives. I decided to settle things with my father and go back home. I went to art school, RISD, for a while, and Mike and I really didn't keep in touch. It was just one of those things. You live with someone intensely for a while, and you part company and never see them again. About 4 years ago, I heard from a friend of ours that Mike was dying of cancer. This really bothered me, mainly because I never had an opportunity to talk to Mike as an adult. You have to understand that when someone opened one of Mike's boxes, even if it was just some guy in a liquor store somewhere, there was a look of wonderment in his eyes. This was something that I have never been able to accomplish with my own artwork. I had a difficult time finding Mike. We hadn't been in touch since the late 70s. But I learned through a mutual friend that Mike was living in Durham, North Carolina. He was an outpatient at a cancer treatment facility. And so I went down there with a video camera and was with him for about 2 months, trying to make a record of his life. It was a difficult process. Mike was a difficult man, but a great artist. I have some of that video here. You have to understand it's difficult for me to watch parts of it. When I was in Durham, Mike and I didn't always get along. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. That's like the whole opening section of the play.
I really want to see this performed. Has your dad ever put together a performance of it? Has it been?
Yeah, so he did when I was like a baby back in Iowa City, and then performed a few times since then, most recently in France.
Damn. No, I'm really intrigued by that. I love the atmosphere of it. I would love to have your dad get a few of his friends or something together and actually put on a scene from it or something at Misery Loves Company. I would kill to have someone put, like, a reading is
Yeah.
great, but it'd be
Um,
amazing to have like 5 or 6 people just put on a
most of
performance
it,
of a scene or something.
most of the actual like play was originally like actual videotapes of my
Oh,
dad as the curator and a friend of his playing Mike. And then the boxes and the like captions on the boxes. The like second half is a museum that the audience members just walk around, and occasionally the curator like comments on something. So
Oh wow,
so it
that's
was like
awesome.
a multimedia kind of play
it's
then.
sort of hard to read the rest of it, but I might try another week.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Also, quick question, Rudy, if my mic is unmuted and someone else is talking, is there any feedback right now?
There's no feedback now. No.
Okay, good, good. I just wanted to be sure of that because since I'm using a different mic than usual. Thank you, Griffin. I tell your dad to come read someday. Do.
I'll try to convince him.
Thank you. Uh, Next up, we have some world premiere shit. Mullane is going to read for us for the first time.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know.
Now, are
Right now.
you and Dave going to be reading together? Are you going to be reading separately? I wasn't sure on that.
No, we both just like made something for this week, but it's not together. Like,
Gotcha. Okay. So I'll let you go first, and then Dave can go after you.
okay, I'll just put the link.
Okay. Yeah. I've got the link too if you need me to here.
There it is.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Awesome.
Right.
It's all yours.
The client is 48 and lost his manhood to a lawnmower accident in the last week of his employment at John Deere. And I am sympathetic to that. He was getting it down from the high shelf, and the forklift got him right between the legs, severing his hamstrings, but tearing the whole business off and mangling what was still attached. He is here now, sheepishly going over the specs of his replacement. Normally for lost limbs, we can download an armature from online and snap it together like K'NEX after a trip to the community makerspace to use their 3D printers. This should hold them over until insurance can give them something better, or they keep it if they're too poor. That's the low accountability work we started out doing. Not so for this job. Joints would pinch that delicate skin and get his fingers caught. Dicks do seem to be more finicky than that. And when it comes to medical concerns, there is usually one specialist for the entire region. I am the dick girl from St. Louis to Etobicoke. This is my 4th appointment for someone's replacement penis I've ever had. His wife set this up when he was still in the hospital because it's going to be their anniversary soon and he's been taking it really hard. She seemed a little desperate over the phone. I can tell him about what we can do for him. They've added machine learning, feeling electrodes. It's really incredible stuff. Yes, we could keep him up to Yes, we can give him up to 60% feeling back. Yeah, I could give him a vibrating attachment for special use should he need it. It's a bad sign I had to be the first to joke about picking a size, but he's been doing so well. He should have full freedom of movement, and he can come back in 5 years to get an upgrade when new advancements are made. I tell Mr. Moore this and he goes whiter. It does take balls for a consultation like this so soon after the accident. He's still got one left and I know it sucks to wear the cup for protection. I try to let him know I'm sympathetic, but this is a scheduled appointment and we're only halfway through the binder. We're on the shape references and I'm encouraging him to choose something close to his original shape. The familiarity might be comforting for gaining confidence back. I might talk him into picking a color, but I doubt it, and it doesn't look like I'll be showing him the section at the back where I cross-reference the Bad Dragon inventory for special attachments, unless he explicitly mentions needing a boost with his wife after those months in recovery. She did seem like a patient woman. There had been a frayed edge in her voice. And that's all I've got so far, because I just started this morning.
That's such a good concept. It's so good. And there are so many great details. I like the snap it together like connects thing that like the thought of like I don't know, it's just very visceral. The thought of reassembling like a removed appendage in that way and all of the like the I like the like insinuation of the rapport between the doctor who's obviously being a little bit pushy and this guy who's like doesn't really want to like talk about it. There's so much like unsaid going on under the surface in that interaction that I think could potentially be really funny, especially if you like continue to flesh it out. Like
It needs more puns. Like this is a first draft because me and Dave made a pact last week because I took him to it for the first time and he's like, we have to have something to read by next week. And so we'll read whatever we have.
Yeah, no,
but I had 2 midterms, so this is
no, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's such
that
a good
was that was fucking incredible. I love the bad dragon bit at the end was very good.
I love the puns, and puns are my thing, a fetish of mine, I guess you might say. But I also love the line that goes, I am the dick girl for St. Louis to Etobicoke. That's a great line.
Thanks.
No, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was very good, and I hope you'll come back and read more of it next week. I think there's a whole like replacement Dick novel here. Great. Thank you so much for reading, Elaine. And Dave, you're up next. You with us?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Hello, guys. I'm Dave, and this is called Hot Date in Ancient Rome. We met on a spot that would have been next to the Colosseum. Her hair was dark and curled up, jewelry on her ears, fingers, neck, and she wore yellow-brown leather shoes. I adopted my best Duchenne smile and greeted her. Salaway, I said. Salaway, she greeted back as she fixed some wrinkles on her tunic. She asked me how my existence was going. We caught up on the mundane events of our morning. She had a beautiful smile. I felt the warmth of the sunlight on my forearms, calves, and the back of my neck, areas where my tunic did not cover my frame. I felt the warmth of her companionship, and that's when I concluded that it was going to be a splendid day. For a moment, I felt base when I got aroused at the thought of what her strophium looked like underneath her tunic, but I quickly forgave myself for being ashamed over such human tendencies. We made our way to the Circus Maximus. I pulled out a joint from a fold in my tunic and met disappointment when I realized I forgot to pack a lighter. Where's Nero when you need a fire? She joked. I pocketed the lighter back in my tunic. We walked along the Roman roads, and the columns were massive. My mind kept irrationally speculating that they were built by giants, not creatures of such frail statures like humans. I noticed my date's shadow disappear from beside mine. She had stopped walking and fixated her gaze on the sun. Wow, she said, mesmerized. This huge entity has existed and will exist for lifetimes. As far apart as we are from those in history and time and manner and beliefs, one thing we have in common is that we have seen the same sun and the same moon. How beautiful is that? She paused, looked down at her side for a brief moment and continued, and yet while it persists for many lifetimes, it too will have its own end. And if our species endures past the star's death, they will have missed such a wonderful sight, she nodded, agreeing with herself. Then I said, well, isn't it great that we exist now? And we continued walking. Stage gladiator bouts started off the festivities. We paid little attention as we fell into tangents, getting to know each other. The arena was hot and humid, sweat soaked through our tunics, and it felt like a fire could break out at any moment. The plebeians that surrounded us came alive when the stage bouts concluded and the venatio commenced. Wild beasts were carried out to the arena by slaves. It was custom for the plebs to witness the slaughter of elephants and lions brought from North Africa, bears from the Moroccan mountains, giraffes and crocodiles from southern Egypt, but the special guest brought in by the emperor for that day's festivities was a rhinoceros, a species that could only be found in some parts of northern Europe and requires advanced human hunting skills to successfully trap. The animals waited impatiently in their cages as what must have been hundreds of slaves were brought out. We were silent, baffled. The slaves were in rows of chains, wearing ragged clothing, barefoot. They were moments away from their end. Some had their head down, some seemed expressionless. Some took a good look around and seemed terrified. I often wondered what type of ruminations one had when placed in front of their mortality, moments away from meeting Hades. Were they afraid? Were they anxious? Could they have been perhaps at peace, looking forward to it? My thoughts were interrupted when a small fire broke out. I successfully averted it, and I used the opportunity to light my joint with the fire and smoked it with my date. The smell did not seem to bother the plebeians. They were too fixated in the moment. The cages opened, and the animals rushed towards the slaves, viciously ripping them apart. Teeth was a useful evolutionary advantage, and it rendered some savage. Torsos quickly became detached from legs. Human guts spilled onto the arena. Archers stood on ledges on the sides, waiting to finish off the remaining beasts. It wasn't the brutality of these attacks that were deafening, or the desperate howls of the slaves as they hopelessly ran to the edges of the arena, only to have their entire being ripped apart. It was the Latin being wailed by the plebeians, a dead static language in the present day, but one which thrived during the ancient times, one which bloomed, one which sounded so elegant when used out in the wild. She turned away from the slaughter. She held my hand, looked at me as she smiled, and whispered that she was truly enjoying the moment. I couldn't help but smile back and tell her me as well. I was in the happiest spot in that moment because of my date. Who gives a shit about Helen of Troy? The archers finished off the rest of the wild beasts, many lions who still had to fight, and the arena fell silent as they prepared for the last stage of the festivities. The emperor was carried out on a futon by the Praetorian Guard. The crowd cheered as he waved in all directions, limping towards the edges of the arena to get closer, barely having a grip on his walking cane. He inspected the diseased beasts mixed with the disfigured corpses of slaves from a distance as to not mix red with his Tyrian-dried toga. I was baffled. The ancient figure I admired the most stood there like a simple mortal being, perhaps weak. This was the man who expanded his empire to Britain, indulged into Etruscan and Carthaginian history and wrote volumes regarding them, became an emperor despite public embarrassment and inability to communicate, and yet he appeared so unexceptional, so commonplace. We finished the day off in the baths, still baked from the joint earlier. My skin touching hers, her hair wet, full attention on each other in that moment. Nothing else ceased to matter. We talked more, and then we dried ourselves up to catch the Roman sunset. And that's the end of it. Thanks for listening.
That's so good. That's awesome. I love like the mingling of the like the modern shit with the classical setting, and the way you like really balance those two contrasting tones. Excuse me, I'm a little tongue tied here pretty expertly in this piece. Like there's a really good tension here between the ancient and the modern, and between like period romance and between like modern pulpy shit, and it's really good. It's really compelling. Thank you for reading.
Thank you for listening. Thanks for feedback.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you and Mullane reading tonight, and hopefully you'll both be back with more next week or soon. We'll see. Yeah, next I have Eris down next. She sent me a message a few minutes before we started asking if she could read, but I don't see her here yet. So, is there anyone else who would like to read? Does anyone have anything they'd like to present tonight?
Oh, I can finish reading that chapter that I was reading before.
Do it.
Okay, let me just pull it up.
Sure thing.
So Sybil was in the bar with Kareem. She shot up in the bathroom. Then they drove to Times Square and went to a sex shop, which takes us to this. Here, pig, pig, pig. If my girlfriends could see me now. Sybil Rain, cop fucker. But isn't that what makes it special? What gives it that edge? That little extra push into absolute perversity? When we exhaust the transgressions unique to our habitus, we must create our own taboos. Do I still hate the cops? Duh. Is the hate what makes this feel so fucking good? Maybe it's part of it. But there's something more to him as well, a sinister layer lower down. He has a deep end, an edge, one he's careful to conceal. He's disturbed in some fundamental way. People always say Times Square has lost its grit. All the characters stripped away when the porn theaters shut down and Mayor Giuliani cleaned up the streets. But the energy of a place doesn't shift so easily. Times Square will always be haunted by the ghosts of its former element. I'm unsure how or in what way, but I know Kareem is at home in that element. He's a part of the grit, the puke, the porno house, and the street corner hustler. I know there's something sinister there, though I can't put my finger on it. All I know is I need to find out more. Here, he says, try this on. It may turn out to be just the thing. The rubber feels so good against my skin as he pulls the mask over my head, gently pulling back and tucking my hair up under the fabric. From inside, I see the world anew. Colors become brighter. The air within my aura grows crisp. The sounds of the shop and the city outside sharpen at first, then fade, and finally give way to a low, throbbing hum. My energy crackles with intuitive clarity. A transformation is occurring, at once subtle and all-pervasive. I know now what I have to do. I know who I am, what I was meant for. No longer am I a mere hole that needs fucking. I'm the motherfucking goddess of holes, the source hole, and I'm about to start creating some new ones. It is time to begin my sacred work. Will this night be my prince? Can he deal with the pressure? Or will he crumple and fall beneath the weight of my vast, devouring will? What do you think, Miss Sybil Rain? Does it speak to you? Is this your mask? I look at my reflection in the shop's full-length mirror and I barely recognize myself. The eyes peering out from within the rubber mask are perfect, their pupils enormous. I see through them into distant galaxies, a space whisper away, a billion light years distant, whole generations of alien terror, wickedness, war, unfathomable love and despair, tender tentacular embraces, and exotic new ways to torture, dismember, and decapitate. I was born to separate spirits from flesh suits. Am I a fucking alien? In my little black top with the red lips stitched in, my checkered schoolgirl skirt, and my purple Chuck Taylors, I might be anything, anyone, a harpy, an angel, the devil herself. There's no way to tell when I'm wearing the mask. Will you let me in, Sybil Rain? Into those big black eyes? Will you let me see the girl behind the mask? He wants to devour me, this much is clear, but I'm hungry too. There's a long dormant part of me that's positively famished. Lately, I feel like I could eat the whole world. Who eats who first? That's the question. That's the game. And there's nothing I hate more than losing. We stop at a cocktail lounge on 48th Street before heading to the hotel where we'll spend our first night together. I sit at a high table on a stool while Kareem orders drinks. I check my phone. There's a message on Snapchat from It Guy 2020. I don't remember following any It Guy, but I open the message anyway. I can barely make out the outline of a face through the raw static and glow the iPhone screen emits, the picture blurry, out of focus. The voice is garbled like it's coming through a scrambler, deep, raw, and feral. It wheezes like a dying oxygen machine, pumping one last breath into a corpse. An ecstatic shiver runs up my spine. Hey, baby, the voice says. It's me. Can you hear me? I love you. I loved watching you tonight with the cop. You two look great together. So sexy. Can't wait to see more. I love to watch you make it with other guys. Just don't forget you're number one. Remember how I've always taken such good care of you. See you soon, baby. I love you. For an instant, the image on the screen sharpens, just long enough for me to make out a gray, wet, slug face with slits where the eyes, nostrils, and mouth should be. The mouth slops open and closed a few times, the clicking soft tongue puffed and greasy within. An oily saliva drizzle collects at the corner of the mouth slit as the face splits open and shut like a sock puppet burn victim. Goes the mouth. Kiss, kiss, says the voice. Then the screen goes blank.
Oh God, that was so gloriously repulsive. That the ending. Oh my, as I've said before, like you have such a wonderfully evocative mastery of detail and world building, and it just penetrates this entire piece. And your delivery tonight was fucking spectacular too. This is all going to be included in a novel or a collection, right? Each of these are parts of a larger work, including the one published on Misery Tourism. That's right.
Yes, thank you. The one on Misery Tourism is the first chapter, and there's the fourth or the fifth chapter is going to be coming out in June on Expat.
Oh, cool.
And then this is a third chapter that I've submitted to a couple places, and then hopefully by the time it all comes out, the manuscript will magically have finished itself.
I know them feels. But yeah, definitely. I am so in love with this piece. I really want to see the finished product. I really do. So and definitely shoot me a DM when the chapter comes out in Expat, and Not make sure to give it a signal boost as well. Thanks so much for reading.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to read tonight? It's not even 9 o'clock, guys. We've got plenty of time. Rudy, Brandon, Sarah, any of the usuals here?
I could read something, but I don't have I wouldn't have a link for it or anything
That's
at all.
fine.
So
Yeah.
okay. Sure. Let me just go to it. But
Yeah, definitely.
okay. It's just like a section from the same novella that's been excerpted a couple times. But it's yeah. I guess I had someone edit it today. So I guess it's I was gonna start subbing it or trying to start subbing things again. So okay, anyway.
Awesome. Yeah.
This chapter doesn't have a name, but okay. It's the same. It's the usual protagonist. She sits cross-legged by the bark of the glade's oaken heart. Oh shit, no, this is the wrong one. I didn't want to read this one, sorry. Just a sec. Bloop, 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 bloop. Okay, this is the one I'll read. Okay, sorry. Okay. Her eyes flit through the trees and catch through the green the silvern streaks. Her eyebrows knotted beneath the veil of her dreads. Bites her tongue and tastes blood, the grit of tar. Holding down a scream, though there's no one to hear. Nothing but the trees of light bleeding their glow into her sight like Luna's ghost on a neo-Shenmue night. Her dreads blot into the light, flaring eclipse lines and black shards. Then as the stitch sinks in, as if twisted into her heart, her coda beating a furry tempo. Hold on, she tells herself, in murmurs that slip out between choking breaths. She hears birdsong, not birdsong she's used to, tuning out the Black Shrike's war cry instead, a harmonic-seeking absence of its violence, a sweet spot resonance. Reaching, a twining of souls trying to get to heaven, clinging to each other. Trancing her out, and she feels her own thread, its spun silk once held by Sariana, held for moments but the touch etched into her stitch, now strung across Kai's palms. So dead gone of relief from the Black Shrike's silence, she's lost the will to fight it. She brushes the dreads from her eyes, fingers the pill capsule in her pocket. White night, the mark of future joy. All is not lost yet. The birds speckle the branches around her, gleam the deep shimmer of pearls and constellations of shine. Like the electric ocean churned sky below, now they take wing, flutter in bolts that weave into a dance lattice through dives and climbs. Flickers across the silver shell above, flashing ghosts of blue and glass-like reflection. Elise lowers her head to a buzzing below. Thick moss faces through her sneaks, curling about the canvas in wisping tendrils. She presses 1 foot ahead. Only strobing glitches refract the silver of the chrome she stands on. It knows her presence and her fears. Now, she knows, the time's come to think of it as alive. Can you understand me, she says, her voice steady, giving the question weight, intent entrenched in its forage. A rush of wind through the trees, drawn through time like a spool. The birdsong trembles into a pitch soft as down, sketching out its notes with precise care so hard to believe in the symphony of so many voices. Okay, she says. I feel kept right now. Wants to leave, knowing she has nowhere to go. The birdsong stirs into a trill, silent pockets splintered by shards of sound. As if deep in analog counsel, she smiles despite herself, black lips splitting to bare what bright remains. The silver of the shell vanished then, a fierce instant of infinity glassing the whole sky into a pale the color of ice. Casted light, oh, no, I think it's casted light, like tempered frost, lends it shimmer. This pure nothing rents as far as she sees, long beyond her center. Her center a grove now aisled by a halo of iced earth bled into a horizon of alabaster. Cute, she whispers, aloof, yet not hostile. It's not what she needs, but it is what she wants. Lose me, she says, if it's chill enough. The trees whip around her in a storm of pixel cascades and flows. The auburn and green a flurry of deltas that haze into heathered mists before a presence strong as if always presaged and rooted centuries back. Now she's walled in by trees, close enough to turn her phobic, were she that kind of person. That's the feeling she wanted. Here's the labyrinth of the block, but shaped by kinder hands, hemmed from arbor instead of fetid stone. The AI spirit in this has giveth her solace, as if had it a heart, it would give more. Right, she says. Hard phase it all. I'll find my own way. Light here is dead on the scene, wasted out to its bones by thick clouds of leaf. Her hands, limpid hanging wrists, are blotted by shadow, the stains tracking her arms in smears of jet black, her skin released in lines as if mapping out a spider web of glinting veins. The maze untwines from distant partings, mere slints from their oblique, gliding angles. The black shrike rustles, but the song of the thrushes finds it like a lullaby from sister to son. Her sense collage finding context in the slants and shadows like seeds in the pit. Stitching her meaning in the tapestry of her memory in lines gray as age, all of it an other, like it could leave her at any moment. Leave her alone, scrying vein the contours of her psyche as reality breaches its surface. Makes her need it, steady as any chem rush, that meaning, the one rush that matters, until the waves are before her and call it spread, and she draws them with footsteps steady and sure. The fuzzy wind like static, flickers of sound like dragonfly wing, and the reverbed crunch of the moss. The birdsong tuning itself to the vibe, strained closer, notes papered over a serene stillness, an ageless quiet that glows through the song like light through a prism. Running blind, the paths she takes reveal their truths only after she takes them. Here and there, pockets of space which she clings to, grateful that this maze has not given up its true heart so easy. Instead, minutes of reprieve, and then the trees moan, and the birdsong echoes these moans in haunted warbles, as if of lost kin and friends. They are no prey here, and Elise half thinks the lament is her own fantasy. Yet she thinks of sacrifice, and wonders just what oath binds his AI spirit here, and how it feels to center such a leering stare. So she moves on when she hears it, picks her way through partings until she hears the sound of rippling water, a whisper seeping its way into BG until the birdsong is drenched in calm. Above her, a molten churn of light bleeding waves of spun glass into a paling silver sky, and before her, the glade landmarked by a lithic tree, its mass overgrown with streaks of moss othered in wintergreen, its knots and courses lit up by the ghost glows of fireflies that cling to and orbit the tree and skim across the glade in lacings of reflected burn. The birdsong fades, melding into the hum of tiny, scattered wing beats, still extant as backdrop for the final harmony. Okay, thank you. Sorry, that was, I know that was probably like underwhelming. That was just like, it hasn't, like, yeah, it's just like from new stuff I'm working on. So
No,
that's
it was
all.
beautiful. I love your prose. I love your descriptions. It's mesmerizing. It's like hypnotic. I think I've said that before, but I just love the way you describe landscapes and like the world just unfolds in this wonderfully gentle way that it's wonderful to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you. It was cool to read. Thank
Um, does anyone else want to read tonight? Come on. I know it's a little bit, we're kind of a little slow tonight, but oh, Rudy, I saw you on mute.
If no one else wants to read, I will read superhero concepts from my documents
Yeah.
until somebody stops me.
All right, that
Hell
sounds
yeah.
great.
The threat, by the way, that's to get people to read.
I think it had the opposite effect, man. I think you're locked in now. But if while Rudy's filibustering here, if anyone decides they'd like to read, you can just put something in the chat. Oh, David says he has something. If I can finish something real quick. Okay, well, while David's working on that, Rudy, what's your first superhero concept?
So somebody mentioned Filibuster. So I have a hero called Filibuster. Hero quote, Reginald P. Quisling, 555-378-9801. John Spinner, 123-699-3058. Gladys Morgan, 439-973-8499, and it goes on like that. Senator Felipe Hernandez is a right-wing conservative member of the United States Congress whose long-winded rants have been known to bring legislation and time itself to a halt. Profile. Whenever any decision would have to be made, do we go right or do we go left in this court? Filibuster can stall it by literally stopping time with an impassioned speech. Time stands still until his speech ends. Next one. Habitual B. Hero quote. So sorry. So sorry. An escaped laboratory specimen, this queen wasp, not bee, uses her enhanced intelligence to fret about the ghosts of colonialism and now wields her swan's might to wage total war on the European honeybee and anyone else who gets in their way. Profile. Habitual bee and her swarm are insectoid bioweapons enhanced by science to be more dangerous, intelligent, and aggressive than their kin. Hogwash. Quote, people come before animals. I mean, it's obvious, right? Meat equals fitness, especially red meat. Red meat. Anne Merced may look out of shape and flabby, but she becomes an unstoppable juggernaut when she bathes in the blood of animals. And boy howdy does she fucking hate animals. Profile. Blood from non-human animals empowers hogwash with immense physical strength, endurance, and resilience. The rarer the animal, the bigger the gains. And speaking of animals, elephant gun. Quote, man, the British man in particular, and I should read this in a British accent, but I really don't want to, is always struggling with the quelling of beasts, both internal and external. This is a man's duty. Milton Brandybush is a British fop who loves his safaris, during which he single-handedly moves its species from endangered to extinct in the wild. He is basically Rudyard Kipling's Evil twin, and seeks to be a civilizing force for the developing countries he moonlights in while hunting. Profile. Elephant Gun is a guy with a huge fucking rifle that he keeps building and tweaking. He puts down tons of wildlife because his power makes him invisible to all animals. It also makes his pecker really huge, because why not?
Now, before you go on, David, are you ready to roll yet? Nope, Rudy, I think you need to read another one.
What? Still not. Okay, here we go. General Zud. Quote, Mongolia is a country that reveres a fucking rapist and puts peasants with antiquated customs on a pedestal. It's time to move on. A fervent believer in the idea that modernization is social progress, this former venture capitalist wants to put Mongolia's nomadic traditions to bed in an icy grave. Profile. General Zud can create the conditions that would cause a Zud, a powerful Mongolian weather phenomenon that kills cattle and acidifies life on the steppes. She can also manipulate ice, shaping it or bringing it to life. Enough?
Nope, I think we need another one.
More? Okay. Burning Cross. Quote, y'all listen up, because I'm going to enumerate to you the Black experience. Benjamin Cross is a sleepy elderly black man, an OG of the civil rights social justice movement and staunch Democrat. Profile. When Cross falls asleep, his body ignites, and he burns with a fire hotter than any plasma. This doesn't ever burn him up, and when he awakes, the fires are instantly doused. He might be narcoleptic, or he might just be old. His senility often shows in his lengthy speeches about the old days, which are reminiscent of Joe Biden's ramblings.
Well, I don't think you can end on that one.
Fair? Okay. I'll read a new one. How about that? Innsmouth. Quote, "You are not from a good family." An immortal department store Karen, whose unhinged tirades against service workers reactivate ancient genetic traits within her victims. Profile. Innsmouth's sonorous shouting can activate generations-old genes in the people who bear the brunt of it, causing them to reemerge. The insult she hurls dig up relevant genetic traits from any ancestor the person has and make them part of the genetic makeup. And the more shouting they endure, the farther back the effect penetrates. This postmenopausal terror seems to be given unnatural longevity by each person she puts down. Her own life is extended by 9 months every time one of her victims reproduces. It's not Maybelline, it's the monument. This, along with her job as a high school guidance counselor, has mostly led to an increase in mental illnesses with genetic components in the small town where she lives. We done yet? Oh, David, I think it's ready.
Yes, I got,
You ready, David? You don't want to hear another superhero concept?
Sure. This is something that I started working on just a couple of days ago, and yeah, while Rudy was doing that, I figured I might as well. And since we're like we're just like scrounging for material to do, I figured I'd try to like finish up the draft. I don't know how good this is, but
So this is brand new. This is about as brand new as it could get.
yeah, kind of, yeah, pretty much. Okay, yeah, here we go. I thought I had money when I went to get gas today, barely over a quarter of a tank. Told the Indian guy at the pump 20 of regular cash. He went through the motions of pumping $20 worth of the stuff into my car. I looked into my wallet and nearly shit myself when I saw only a single and a 10 in my wallet. I tried yelling out my window to tell the guy to stop, but couldn't see him. He probably went over to someone else. I'm not sure if he could have stopped the thing anyway. I doubt he could have, so either way I was fucked. I watched in agony as I sat there watching the ticker go up. The last 20 cents took several weather cycles and extinction events. The guy comes over expecting a bill with some genocidal maniac's portrait on it, only for some dumbass white kid to tell him, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I thought I had a 20 in my wallet. Could I just give you my credit card that I don't pay the bills for it instead?" He appears a little confused, but takes the card anyway and goes over to his boss, I supposed, saying something in at least one of the Indian languages. I sat there for a while, regretting all of my actions that led me to that point, thinking of what might be happening. How's this going to be resolved? Using a card makes gas more expensive for some reason. Not sure why, but it is. But it's not like I could. So it's not like I could simply exchange one payment method for another. I fucked up. I'm fucked, aren't I? I thought to myself. I just wanted a fucking coffee and to get gas, and here I was possibly getting into some legal or financial hot water just because my retarded ass neglected to put that 20 into my wallet. But the guy came back with a pen and a small slip for me to sign. The payment went through for some reason. Wanting to get the fuck out of and away from there as soon as possible, I didn't ask questions and signed the payment confirmation. I gave the guy the slip of paper with my middle school quality signature. He gave me the customer's copy, and that was that. I took the long way back home because it was the closest way directly off of the lot. I didn't think too long, my one and only desire being to get away from the sight of my embarrassment. For the rest of the day, I thought about what happened, still quite confused over the whole interaction. I put myself into a panic cycle as I imagined a bunch of Indian guys stalking me and kidnapping me, slitting my throat and torching my body. The crime would be discovered by the local authorities, and I would be immortalized on boomer Facebook pages and fascist media websites as the poor 24-year-old white kid with a bright future ahead of him who got slaughtered by savage Orientals. Many Sikhs, Muslims, and generally brown-skinned people would be attacked in response to this. My legacy would be Tucker Carlson's fascinated and confused expression as phrenologists and racial hygienists use my blood to paint white genocide in big bold letters on one of the many text crawls on the screen. Sean Hannity flosses the bits of my charred flesh from between his teeth with the tendons of orphans, and they fly through the plasma screens of geriatric white people who see black people as things to be spectated upon at best. And then my parents. Oh God, oh fuck. They would race throughout the country and enact pogroms that would run so deep with racial animosity that it would end in a murder-suicide over their Slavic and Irish blood. They will somehow single-handedly recede the tide of whiteness to some remote village in England where it's the norm to have 6 toes. Soon the entire country would descend into absolute chaos. Whatever remained of the dam holding back the tide of racial animosity would crack and be obliterated as Italians and Germans are lynched in the suburbs. And it will all be my fault because I forgot to put that $20 bill in my fucking wallet. But then I calm down. There's nothing to be afraid of. I get control of my breathing. And eventually my heart rate returns to normal. And then I remember that I left with the guy's pen. My eyes shoot open, bloodshot.
That was amazing. Hilarious. I don't know how many times in my life I've had a moment like that, right? Where you commit some tiny social faux pas and in your mind, it just spirals out into this incredible, like, absurd mess when really like nothing has happened, right? And this is just, oh my God, hilariously well written too. Like,
yeah, I started writing that on the day that happened. That's based on a very true story. So, yeah.
I think it really like it captures like a very particular kind of like very white anxiety too, like the like good liberal anxiety, right? Where you like have a racist thought and then you go like, oh no, I had a racist thought, and then you rationalize the racist thought, and then the racist thought turns into this massive like avalanche of horrors. It's just really funny. It's really, really fucking awesome. You should definitely get that placed somewhere. I want to see that in print.
Yeah. I'm planning on it.
So, first of all, is Eris here? Eris is here. Eris, are you with us?
She vanished off camera a minute ago.
Damn.
I think her dad was there.
Oh,
Damn
yeah,
it.
she typed in the chat too, so I saw.
Shit.
There's somebody else in there.
Because she had signed up to read. Well, that's okay. We can wait a few more minutes. Does anyone want to read while we wait for Eris to come back? If not, I'm sure Rudy has more superhero concepts. Rudy, I think you've got to read at least one more superhero concept.
No.
You have a moral responsibility to read at least one more superhero concept.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Oh, Alexandrine just saved me, I think.
Well, you
Or
better
saved
have one
everyone
ready,
else.
just in case.
I want to hear the superhero concept before I read anything.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
One superhero concept, Rudy, and then
I'll do one.
Alexandrine. Okay.
Okay, so this one is dedicated to B-Boy, who acted as a sensitivity reader for the concept, for part of it anyway. But yeah, this character's name is Quadroon. Quad and rune as in runic carvings. Quote, I'm the hardest working rune master in the northwestern ethno state. Clairvon Trapp is deputy lawyer of Jim Crow, another super, war unit. A white separatist militia unofficially occupying 3 autonomous blocks of gentrified Seattle Airbnb lofts known as The Hole, which loom just close enough to the black neighborhoods to start shit, but are also situated within convenient walking distance to her brother's artisan role-playing games workshop. Not to mention a Jewish-run bagel joint whose regularly clean bathrooms are for customers only, a rule that only Zog cucks adhere to. Her powers revolve around ancient runes, of course, and are totally not belief manifestations related to the Runecaster class from Forgotten Realms Dungeons & Dragons Faerun campaign setting. Profile. Claire is basically a terrifying ancient sorceress, with boomer investment banker parents, who cast spells by throwing d4 dice or soul caltrops with runes printed on their sides. Oh, and she's also 1/4 black, passing as white. Afflicted with ADHD and a form of dyslexia that makes reading anything but her precious runes a chore, Claire has always worked harder than her peers to achieve less. I mean, fuck, the head lawyer couldn't even 1v1 the Antifa super who challenged him to a sword cane duel on Pine and 10th, and definitely can't recite a year-by-year history of Minza Baranan's slave revolt, even though he wanted to play an Al Hoon in Tim's campaign. And that'll do.
Thank you, Rudy. Alexandrine, it's all yours, and then Eris, who I think is back.
Okay. I don't know if I can follow that. I appreciate the pitch perfect description of Seattle. That's exactly what Seattle is like. It's either a paradise or terrible, depending on who you are. So this is from my book, Desperate. And I'm just going to read like a couple short chapters.
Is it this one?
Yes, it's that one. I'm glad you have a copy. I'm so flattered. Okay. This is from the 5th chapter. V had an ex-girlfriend back in Indiana called X. Everyone called X. Their relationship had been predicated on a mutual love of substances, alcohol mostly, though they did drop acid and smoke a little pot. And they both really liked to party and would constantly find excuses to celebrate. Minor victories, still a reason to split a couple pitches at the bar. They'd met while each of them accompanied a friend on an OkCupid date, and the two of them had immediately hit it off and shared a connection so deep as to appear supernatural, a bone-hitting, soul-level connection over not only the things they loved, but also over who they were as people, and it seemed from the very inception that they had been destined to be together, which glossed over any issues and bound them together after only a couple of dates into what felt like the perfect couple. Except for the fact that X was a mess and V was also a mess, but a different kind of mess, as in V had a bank account and never forgot his ID, so he'd be able to drink at all times, but X wasn't capable of managing either of those things, and V had a college degree and X didn't, had never taken a single class, and was in fact trying to enroll at the community college, assuming she didn't opt to watch the Appalachian Trail instead, which of course never happened because so few of X's plans ever did. X didn't even have a bed. She slept on a pile of blankets on her floor. She had trouble holding down a job too, moving from one to the other for one spurious reason or another. But V didn't really care, ignored any red flags because she was curvy and androgynous at the same time, and she was mean, and that was all that he really wanted in anyone. That and someone to go on adventures with, which usually just came down to finding their keys or car after a long night of drinking, the drinking being ubiquitous along with the sex that came with it, always unprotected because at that point both of them were long past caring about consequences. And then X told V that she had cancer, had it before, but that was cervical and this was melanoma. And so he drove her to doctor appointments and never went in with her. And she also never lost her hair after starting treatments or even had any kind of scar where they took it off, which was weird because he inspected her whole body several times because that was the kind of sex they had, quick and hard, but also twisty and exploratory. And he slowly began to believe that she didn't have cancer at all and in fact never had, which V said to X like some kind of idiot, which led to an enormous fight, and they almost broke up, but he took her explosive rage and copious tears as evidence that she was in fact sick, and in hindsight, he should have just taken that as a sign that the relationship wasn't meant to be, but no, they stayed together, and he never said anything about his doubts, even as she showed zero symptoms of the disease in any way, and just seemed to magically get better one day. But she really did get pregnant, once where she knew it, and he helped pay for the abortion they had to drive up to Bloomington to get. She hadn't let him be near her for the aftermath of the procedure, but the way she described it made it clear that this time she definitely wasn't lying, because there was a truth and reality in her eyes and voice that he could not ignore no matter how badly he wanted to. The truth was they'd killed his kid. No biggie, shit happens, and they went right back to raw dogging and him coming inside of her all the time like ain't shit changed. So of course she got pregnant again. But this time she was just mysteriously sick and pregnancy test came back negative, which didn't really matter because a miscarriage was the only explanation for how badly she bled and how sick she got. And of course she took this as further evidence that her body was cursed, stricken as it was with cancer, and V did not see any reason whatsoever to argue with her or question it and just went along with it all because he was desperately in love. And not long after that, he moved in with her. She lived in a house with an unmarried couple and their 4 kids, plus another couple that lived up the stairs, and X's room was this terrible 9-inch nails looking deal. And she still didn't have a bed to sleep on, so they'd sleep on a blanket on the floor after they got done fucking, either standing up against a wall or rubbing themselves raw against the indoor-outdoor carpet. And when she did finally get a bed, they immediately fucked on it, no preamble, no talking. He just came over and they lay down and immediately banged, and of course he came in her again. The place was a horrible mess because the couple didn't take care of the house, left shitty diapers on the countertops, and didn't do dishes, and fed their kids from the food bank, saving the EBT for themselves. They had a very friendly and beautiful cat, which V loved dearly. Eventually, they decided to move to Bloomington, and this was when everything went to shit. They moved in with one of X's friends from her hometown, the mousy and cringing kind of lesbian who was not the kind that V got along with. Even though he was now for the first time living in a place where everyone was queer, he wasn't that kind of queer. He was party queer, fun queer, get hammered and make out queer, say things you really shouldn't and make a mess and play drinking games and flirt and hit on whoever or whatever queer. He couldn't match with the mousy girl and her equally mousy girlfriend who didn't do anything at all, just sat together in a room all the time. V drank more and more, and that was where the trouble started. The more he drank, the angrier he got, and he started saying things to X that were unforgivable, called her white trash, and said that she couldn't do anything right, and that he could get someone way hotter than her, and then he'd be all apologetic in the morning because he was a textbook abusive boyfriend, and their fights never quite got physical until the one time they did, and he shoved her off the bed because he thought she kicked him while trying to sleep after an epic dust-up, and it just got worse. And to be fair, yes, she had repeatedly lied and gaslit and probably cheated on him, but this wasn't the way to handle it. But he couldn't just call it quits or admit that there was something wrong with him, so this was how they solved all their problems, and it was disgusting. Eventually, they got into a fight where she left the bar, and he had to drive around looking for her, which turned out to be a waste of time because once she got in the car, he just slammed on the brakes so hard her head hit the dashboard, and then he kicked her out of the car and made her walk back and tried and failed to keep her from coming into the apartment, so he stole her phone and drove to see his mother, and that was the end of the relationship. They kept living together, and after V narrowly avoided a DUI and quit drinking, they started fucking again. V had a fetish for high heels, which was probably born from watching too much pornography, and X had a fetish for getting cream pied, which also probably came from watching too much pornography. So they made up a game where he'd come inside her every time she changed her shoes, and they would play that game over and over again because somehow, even though they were talking to other people and firmly agreed that they should not be seeing each other, the connection remained and wouldn't go away, so thoroughly embedded in each of their psyches was the other, which is why they were still friends and kept in contact and occasionally traded nudes even while V was in New York. And even after X started seeing an idiot that she worked with, they still kept in touch to an unhealthy degree. And V went from being a bad boyfriend to a bad ex-boyfriend, psychic runoff, still sticking to the mind and body of X. And they kept at it even though V knew the best thing would have been to simply let the relationship go as soon as he realized that she was definitely lying about having cancer. I think I'm gonna stop there.
That was fucking incredible.
It was fucking amazing. And I love how deep you get inside your characters' heads. Like you have a real mastery of writing internal monologues and of capturing all of the like weird, totally contradictory, self-deprecating, like self-deluding thoughts that we all have. And the like rapid fire, like boom, 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 the way you like move from one like awful traumatic moment to another, to this like, to suddenly to like just a moment of respite. And then all the trauma starts again. I love the pacing. I love the like how carefully you've sort of detailed the character, the psychology of these characters. It's just really incredible. And I have to buy a copy of Desperate. I've been meaning to for weeks now. I have to do it because I'm really, really excited about this book.
Well, thank
You
you.
would love it. There's even a Kanye West reference on page like 77, I think.
Well, that's it. I was on the fence, but that was it.
Yeah, I love the prose because it's like how racing thoughts like are, but on in print and in words. It's really great.
Yeah, fuck. Like every sentence is an intrusive thought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for reading, Alexandrine.
Thank you for letting.
Eris, it's all yours now.
All right.
What
So
are you planning to read? You sent me a message a few minutes before we started, but I don't think
Right.
we had a chance to talk about what you were going to read.
Yeah, because I forgot. I thought time zones were different. Should I? Yeah, but then in the chat, someone said to read part of my book, so I'm going to do that. Someone give me a page number. There's only
Oh, this book?
12
This
books.
this one?
Yeah. Oh my God, I love you. Hi. Is there anyone? Oh my God, it's almost terrifying. Thank you. Is there any part you want to hear out loud? Like in a bona fide phallic voice?
How about Joyride?
Okay, fuck yeah. Kimberly screams into my ear with all the loudness of her voice tuned to the frequency of my cell phone. Fuck your plans. I can't be alone right now. Her sentences are punctuated by the sound of her snorting lines. We're 16 with too much free time. Kimberly slides her finger across the skin above her lip and licks the coke dribbling from her nose. She's just had a big fight with her boyfriend, John, who is 45 years old. Kimberly says she needs somebody to go with her to Hollywood to deal with this fucking bullshit. She meets me at my house. I'm wearing jeans and a heatherette tank top with a diamond graphic. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. And expensive hair extensions, the kind that takes hours to put in. We make the easy 1 mile trek to her house so we can get properly dressed up. Am I reading too fast? Okay.
No, you've got a good pace.
Kimberly's house is a mess. The house is filled with things and creepily devoid of people. I've never met Kimberly's parents. The things are everywhere. Dusty Chanel purses and indifferent designer cosmetics. Her phone rings. The ringtone indiscernible over the blasting MGMT record. She violently motions for me to switch off the stereo so she can put John on speakerphone. We're going to the beach, he informs us. Get ready. She crushes the blow with a MAC compact and does a line, her anger switching off instantly. She resurfaces on a genial genial plateau of a euphoric haze. She throws Marlboro Reds into one of her Chanel purses, and soon we get picked up by John in his BMW. My hair is flying everywhere. We are driving fast, fast, fast. The world around me shaded dark through Valentino butterfly shades. Kimberly tells me she loves me. We pull up to John's house, hop out of the BMW, and get into his Escalade. Kimberly lights up a cig. She brags about her matches from Vegas and how fast they light up. I read all the stickers in the garage, something about empowering girls and donating to Africa. Do you have any kids? I asked John. The seats are beige leather, soft, smooth. It feels like a spaceship, somewhere to hide from the dry heat of the San Fernando Valley. Yeah, he says. A daughter, Amanda. She's 16. We leave and stop at a liquor store. Kimberly and I are in need of some eyeliner, but I can't find any. I ask if we are going to get drunk at the beach. Kimberly says yes, which sounds pretty nice to me. It's a long drive to the beach from the valley, so John stops in the parking lot to make us some drinks in the car. I drink whatever John mixes, vodka and red Gatorade, and it's strong. The lack of food, replaced with diet pills, makes me dizzy. We are drinking from red cups. We stay in the liquor store parking lot until the cups are empty because we don't want to steal in his car. Kimberly and I take some Vicodin because it's there and it's free. She's more cautious than me and only swallows one once I have. Back on the road, we're listening to music and dancing in the leather seats and smoking when Kimberly picks her jacket off the floor of the car, revealing 2 handguns and 1 shotgun. I've never seen a gun before, I say. You've never even held one? John asks. I shake my head, hypnotized by the presence of a weapon I've only seen in movies. Can't stop staring at them, the shiny metal things half covered by Kimberly's soft yellow hoodie. 1, 2, 3. Have you ever killed anyone? I ask. He looks at Kimberly, then at me. Yes. John tells me that there are only 1,000 in the world of the shotgun, and proceeds to put it in my hand. I laugh and tell him I've never held a gun before. He laughs and says he's not going to kill me. I keep nodding off and being woken up by John feeling at my thighs. We go to this restaurant in Malibu called Taverna Tony's. He gets a Jack and Coke and orders us 2 margaritas on the rocks. John knows Tony, so we meet him. John keeps showing off his status and saying how Brad Pitt goes to this restaurant and that we are at the best table. At this point, I am so drugged out. I ask anyone I see if I look cross-eyed because I am so dizzy. Kimberly's desire to go to Venice Beach is overpowered by her need to ride the Sea Dragon at Santa Monica Pier. We have a 5-minute argument about its actual existence, and then we're on our way. We arrive at 3rd Street Promenade, where John makes a reservation at Hotel California. This actually exists, okay? I try to make the concierge believe John is my dad, but they just look at me for a second, me wobbling around with Kimberly, and then ask John for his credit card. We go shopping. Walking itself is a carnival ride. Oh, sorry. And Kimberly and I are both talking in amazingly convincing British accents. John buys Kimberly a $300 dress at Mac's Studio, and then buys me $200 worth of Juicy Couture perfume and body wash at Sephora. After a few hours of going in each store on the quaintly lit promenade, we drive Kimberly back home. But I don't want the night to end. I want this glamorous days of drugs and shopping to go on forever. John drives me back to the hotel. In the car, John starts massaging my thigh at first, then smacks my crotch hard. At the hotel, John tries to fuck me, but I cover my pussy and tell him to put on a condom. He looks momentarily sheepish, maybe even girlishly shy, like a little kid in trouble. I ask him if he has any STDs, and he gives me a look that would be like as if that was the most scandalous thing ever. Of course not, he says. I think of the guns. We fuck. He constantly tells me he loves me and how gorgeous I am, etc., etc. I play along, tell him I love his cock. I let him unzip my dress and we fuck again while I stare at the beautiful Hotel California ceiling mirage of fish and the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman movie poster. I give him head. I gag. He pushes my head and I throw up on his dick. My stomach is only vodka and pills, so nothing comes up but acid water. Not that it even matters, because I look it all up. My body does not belong to me. It's not even attached to me. I'm floating. It ends, and I tell him I'm leaving to walk back to Express to get my jacket since I left it there. I got it from Wasteland, and I really fucking like it. I do not come back. I'm in Santa Monica, and everything is closed, and this means my only way of getting back home is by calling my dad. Nausea ripples through my body on the drive back to the house. I sit in the back and listen to oldies, KRF 101. I'm annoyed by the taste of salt on my lips and by how long the clean scent of ocean air lingers in the car. That's Joy Right.
That's so good. I think I heard you read an earlier version of that chapter months and months and months ago.
Probably it was on Hobart. Yeah.
Oh, that might be it. And when you read it then, I was very caught up in the rhythm of the early part of the piece, which is very manic. And I didn't realize how sad the ending was. The ending is
a lot of people are
sad.
A lot of people, yeah. Apparently, they don't realize that it's actually kind of sad, which I'm really happy about because who wants to be the depressing rape writer? No one.
but yeah, those last few sentences, there's so much like despair there, and so I don't know. It's great. It's wonderful. It's one of those things where each time you encounter it, it gets a little richer. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think the part that I liked about it is that like the main character just she wanted that night to happen. She didn't want it to end.
Yeah, definitely. And you get that, you get that, like, you get the excitement and the like manic and like deranged mania of the early part of the
Exactly.
days,
Strange mania. Thank
which
you.
is like everyone's like been a teenager and everyone knows that kind of like wonderful self-destructiveness. And you also know like how you feel afterwards, which is not great. Yeah, no, that was fantastic, fantastic. And I've heard excerpts from two books in a row now that I'm ashamed not to own, and I have to pick up Desperate, and I have to pick up Ruthless Little Things sooner rather than later.
It's like one of the cheapest books on Expat, so.
Yeah, no, it's just
Oh,
I have such a backlog, but I feel both were on my like reading list for the year. So sometime very soon I'm going to get them and I'm going to read them.
Paris, I have to read your book and Damien Ark's book. Yours finally got here, so.
oh, cool. Oh my God, I need to read Damien Ark's book. It's a mammoth. It's amazing. So, fuck.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, I really want the Eris audio book of Ruthless Little Things. So you can
Yeah, I'll
pronounces are
fucking do
always fucking
that.
awesome.
Fuck yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, new goal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eris. Now I think we're probably going to wrap it up for the night, unless someone has a piece they really, really want to read. But I think we'll call it a night there, except Rudy, I want you to read one more character concept for the road. I just want one more superhero yes, hello, Mr. Boss. I just want one more superhero concept and then we'll call it for the night.
Oh, okay. Sure. I'll read probably my favorite superhero concept that I've come up with, called Lifesaver. Her quote: "No more fucking baby parts." Lifesaver is a pro-life schizophrenic with an energy blade that grows larger when she senses abortion is taking place. Profile: Lifesaver's got a spidey sense for abortion, and her energy sword can cut through almost anything. Oh, and it also has the power to reanimate dead fetuses.
Thank you, Rudy.
Rudy, you're so epic. Oh my God. Oh, this is why
Okay.
this is why I read the Misery Index for fun. Like, well, obviously for fun, but you know.
Oh, thank you.
So that has been Misery Loves Company, a weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, maybe you should drop in next week. We post we post the link out on Twitter. If you follow us at miserytourism.com, and anyone's free to come, anyone's free to read or lurk or whatever. Okay, that's it. Fuck it, we're done.